Okay, I just wanted to go over what I was working on right now with my 3D printer. This is a first design of a modular slingshot. The idea was to make a handle that would fit just any number of things, really. Um, Nerf guns, rubber band shooters, you name it, but would actually be functional. You could actually use it. It would have a lot of strength built into it, and it was actually surprisingly successful. Even though this is only PLA, which is a very weak material as far as the available materials for a 3D printer, um, the engineering worked. It was surprisingly strong. I cannot, in any way, shape, or form, create enough effort to break this or even shatter any part of this. Now, I did learn a lot from this first print. One, this does not really work very well with my hand. My hand's bigger than this, and I don't have a very huge hand, so I imagine it's even more true for other people. Now, I went ahead and I made a much, much more exaggerated design here, but as you can see, I had a failed print, and so I only was able to print half of this. But I'm kind of happy it was, because this is incredibly uncomfortable. Not only is it way too wide, but this bump is quite uncomfortable. So it was good that it didn't end up wasting all that plastic. This L-shaped bracket I set up because I wanted to be able to use any material to make an arm brace, and you could lash it in these. You could see it's got a little bit of a curve to it. If it was finished, it'd be a full semicircle, and you would be able to put either a stick or a PVC pipe this direction, and you could then lash your wrist brace directly to that, or you could put it this direction. And the idea here is that you could then use it as a lever boat, or you could simply attach it to a walking stick and position it on the ground, and you wouldn't need that extra string piece because the ground essentially works as the other side of your lever. So that's another thing you can do quite easily with this. So that would be something you'd be able to do. So kind of good thing that I didn't end up doing that. So that made me think, though, why not just print a small wafer to make sure we test it first? And the cool part is, no, 5mm thin wafer version of this was actually enough to allow me to attach the fork I printed and have it stay in there, and still, so giving me an idea of what it actually would look like, even though I didn't use a lot of material. And it's not very dense. As you can see, I refrained from letting it print the last layer, so you can't really see, so you can actually see the internal structure. If you look on the other side, that's actually what it would look like if I let it print that last layer. And I really like this shape. The shape is much, much better. As you can see, it's much more comfortable in my hand, and at 25mm width, I think it's going to be perfect. I was coloring all of this because in white it's really nice PLA to work with, because I can mark things up, figure out what it is that's working, what's not working, much easier. So what I was trying to illustrate here is I learned from the first design that any layer that is part of the section going into the handle is going to be your strongest sections, and this starts far up towards the front, which isn't very useful. All the sections back here are going to take the brunt of all of the force. So I should have shifted this whole thing forward so that the middle of this loop is actually positioned at the front of this section right here. That is something I did on this one. As you can see, if you follow this line straight up, you get the exact center of the fork, which means from here back is your area of strength where you need it. And that, I think, greatly improved it. I also thickened this dramatically, but I also shortened it because I realized that the screw was more than enough to keep it stable in that regard. It does not need to be very deep. It does, however, need to be a little thicker. It doesn't have to be quite this thick. This is 25mm, and I think I could probably go to 20. I had this at 15. I think 20 is probably the golden amount of space. And this is a 5mm curve. I'll give the exact designs on the once I post this final product. I will actually give access to the CAD files on Onshape, which is what my design program that I use. So anybody can manipulate it, use it as they want. The goal here is just simply for to create something that would allow people to be propelled forward. Once you have your base handle, you'll be able to print any design you want as far as the fork's concerned. If you don't like tubes, there's no reason for these holes. You can go ahead and print a fork design that is just for flat bands, or you can make it only for tubes. You can make it come out this way instead of over the top. There's many functionalities, but it doesn't require you to print a full slingshot. Again, you only need to print this small section. This only took an hour and 7 minutes, and that was using a Volcano nozzle with 0.8 millimeter. A Volcano extruder with 0.8 millimeter nozzle. And so that extrudes a lot more plastic than most 3D printers, which is why I was able to print it so fast. That's true about this handle as well, which I really kind of, that's the way to print if you're going to do something functional like this. It also creates thicker layers that adhere to each other and makes it much stronger. So that's where we're at right now. I also am doing a couple other projects. Here's one of them. I'll put that away. Just quickly talk about a couple different designs I had for a modular lure system. So this essentially functions like a backbone and a spring, but each of these sections slide onto each other and they move left or right. And the good idea is that you can make your lure any length you want, and this section in the middle, held by this wire tie, not only does it function as a spring, but it keeps it from sliding up and down. So you have all of your layers locking in perpendicular to each other instead of these alternating layers. When you print like that in one print, you're actually getting every other link would be weak. So this way, every link is equally strong. Now, obviously, the shape is not very appealing as a lure, but you can see the idea. So this is just a different shape, same idea though. And they're pretty flexible. I was actually very impressed by this. Once I come up with this design, this will also go up on Thingiverse and it will be free. All right, have a good one.